I sort of, I started thinking of myself as a theatre man originally, but actually the first professional job I had was an episode of a TV show. And before I'd left drama school, I was allowed to go out to do a play, and I came back and then I was allowed to do a film. So before I even left drama school, I'd done a film, a play and a TV show. So my classmates hated me. But I mean, I think because I'm, you know, if you are classically trained and you have a sort of grounding in the theatre, I think that kind of infuses everything you do. Prague. It was kind of a crazy experience because, you know, at the time, there were lots of these films that were made with, you know, they'd have like a star from each country, and it would all be, each European country would put money in. They were called Euro puddings for a while, these films. So there was me from Britain, Sandrine Bonnaire from France, and Bruno Ganz. I think he had German money, even though he was Swiss. And it was so interesting because like, Sandrine was a big French movie star, and I had to like go to Paris and be photographed. I mean, do a photo shoot to see if I was like, you know, a movie star. It was really weird. And we shot it in Prague, you know, only a couple of years after the Velvet Revolution, or since the wall came down. And so it was really crazy being there because I remember like you had to order, if you wanted to go to a restaurant, you had to book it a week in advance because it was still all in the sort of communist structure. And you would go and it'd be a totally empty restaurant. And I remember one time, when you got a salad, it was like a bowl of sugary water with some lettuce floating in it. And one time, before we started shooting, when I was rehearsing, I remember I was having dinner with the director and there was a slice of tomato floating in my salad. And I was like, I got a tomato! And I thought, I need to go home. I need to, because I actually started eating meat again during that film because it was so hard to be a vegetarian. But not anymore. Romy and Michele's high school reunion. That film is really fascinating in that, you know, it was the first film I'd ever made in America. The first time I'd ever played an American. I really still can't understand why they cast me, actually. But I had never been to a prom. We don't have high school reunions where you know, none of those things were common to me. I didn't understand what it was about. I didn't know what it meant to go to a prom or anything. I didn't even know how you pronounce Tucson. Like in the read-through, someone said Tucson. I giggled, thinking they'd got it wrong, thinking it was Tucson.
Nobody's going to say no to anyone tonight.
Michele, since this is the last night of school and all, would you care to dance with me once?
No.
I was trying to like have this learning curve at the same time as not let on that I knew so little about American culture. But it's a great film in that it's just become this thing that people are obsessed with it, you know? Like people watch it every week. And there's a thing in my bar, I have a bar called Club Cumming here in New York, and on Saturdays there's a Romy and Michele tea dance, and they play 90s music, and they have different, you know, feature different sort of artists of the week. But when you want to do a request for the DJ, you do it on a Post-it, and they have scarves for you to fold on the bar. It's hilarious. So it's got this, you know, incredible sort of passionate following. It really I guess it hit a chord because most Americans have proms and go to high school reunions as well. But for me, it was this, you know, it was very exotic. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And then the dance bit, I like the dance bit because, you know, I have danced a wee bit. So, but again, it just felt like, what the fuck? You know, we're doing this kind of rom-com and suddenly there's a big dance sequence. None of us had any idea it would be this huge film, you know, 20 years later. It is amazing. Black Beauty. I am the voice of Black Beauty. I am beauty, if you will.
Once I discovered that he and I, that the two of us could become one, this business turned out to be perfectly glorious.
It's quite funny. So I was doing a film in Ireland called Circle of Friends, and in a gap, I went back and I did the voice for this horse film. And when I went back to Ireland, there was a black horse with a white thing on its head, like Black Beauty, like when you came out of this abbey where I was staying, on this field there was this horse, and it came to me, and like it was magical. And I also met my very dear friend Caroline Thompson, who wrote and directed that film, and I did another couple of things with her. That was the first time I met her. It's kind of crazy when you say, "I am the voice of the horse." Not words you thought you would hear yourself say, but I really like it actually. And it's also what's hilarious. Once I was flying to Mauritius, I think. I was in those days where they had the same film, but like you could just flick over and it'd be different, you know, you'd be dubbed. So I could hear myself, and I'd flick over and it'd be someone pretending to sound like me in French. And I really loved that part. I actually have met quite a few of the people who dub me in different countries. The man who does me in Brazil recently contacted me on Instagram. They'd finished the film and I came onto it like in post. So I didn't meet any of them. I mean, I knew a couple of them. But no, I'd know, it's kind of weird, you know, having that, being such a large part of a film that you've actually really very little contact in. A lot of, with those sorts of films, animated films, you actually, it only takes you like a couple of afternoons, and yet, you know, it's this massive sort of thing. GoldenEye. Well, it's sort of one of these things like I didn't grow up thinking, oh gosh, I want to be in a Bond film. But when I was asked, it was like, what? You know, it was crazy. And it was also the first, there'd been a gap. They hadn't done a James Bond film for a long time. So it was sort of, the thing was being rebooted, so it was even more exciting. And it was Pierce Brosnan's first one. And also they had this thing where it was like, they weren't called Bond girls, they called them Bond women. They tried to kind of, you know, make it seem a little less sexist than it actually is. And so I was like a Bond boy, because I had shorts. It was really, it was great fun. I really had a great time. I mean, I was paranoid that I wouldn't be able to do the pen thing. It took me ages. I remember like getting the script and thinking, oh, I'm trying to do it, and I couldn't do it. And then I showed my friend Dixie, I said, have a read of the script. It doesn't really matter. I could do something else, couldn't I? I don't really need to do that. And she read it and she went, oh my God, the whole entire script revolves around you being able to do that thing with a pen. You've got to learn how to do it. So my friend Jason taught me. And like, it's one of those things, it's, you know, it's kind of an iconic thing. And also I think it's the first Bond film that had a you know, video game. There was a Nintendo video game, and I remember when I found out, a while after the film came out, I realised that there was a Nintendo game that I was in, and I had an assistant at the time called Landon. I remember saying, oh, Landon, I'm in a video game. And he was like, oh yeah, I know, I have it, you know, if you piss me off, I go home and shoot you in the balls. So how lovely.
I am invincible!
You know, people shout, I am invincible at me to this day. And like sometimes people in bars will do, will you just put your arms up and say I'm invincible? And sometimes I do, and other times I'm like, no, not gonna. Just depends on the mood.
You have them do their best impression of it.
Yes, I let them do it badly, and then I am invincible. Do it. Emma.
I want to talk about one particular scene where you're with Gwyneth Paltrow in the carriage.
I am hoping... No. Fearing. Ready to die if you refuse me. Surely my ardent attachment to you, my love and passion cannot help but have made an impression.
Mr. Upton, this is I, Miss Woodhouse. Mm-hmm. The party spirit has confused you.
We were in a soundstage in like Elstree or one of those ones, and it was, I remember, a really hot day, and we were sort of in a thing, and you know there's people pushing outside going like this to make the carriage go like this, and there was people throwing snow like that outside the window. So it was ridiculous. And there was a bit where, you know, we keep going back and forward and from one seat to the other. And there's one bit when Gwyneth goes over here like this. And I'm sitting and I come up to her and I sort of whisper in her ear and I go, allow me to interpret this silence. But the thing was, so now whenever I see her, actually, I'll be chatting and someone will just come up and go, allow me to interpret this silence. I go, Gwyneth! That's become our line. But when I did that line to her, because you know that thing when you're not looking and someone comes up really close to you and whispers in your ear, it's really, makes you sort of tickly, I suppose, makes you giggle. So I did that. She started giggling. I started giggling. We could not get it together. And Doug, the director, said there was only really one take. There was only one version of what they had of us not laughing to complete a certain part of the scene. Because we just couldn't get it together.
Allow me to interpret the silence.
And also, I think it was the last day of the film we shot that on. So we were all just giggly and hysterical and, you know, just people throwing snow out the window. You see their hands, like in your periphery, you can see like some guy from the crew like going, not paying attention. It really puts you off. Spice World. Doing Spice World was the most hilarious, fun film because the Spiceys were like just, it was crazy going to work. When we had base camp, you know, when you go to the set where your trailers are, it all had to be like behind these high fences and because of all these tweens would like climb over. When they opened the gates, it'd be like this wail of you know, tweens screaming. We all had these cars with dark windows that they took us home in, and they would all be like screaming for Jerry or something, and you think, it's only me, darling, sorry to disappoint you. But it was bonkers. And they were just, I think it was at their most sort of, you know, they were still sort of innocent and loving it and having this amazing time. They hadn't got sort of jaded. And I just had a real blast.
Any second now, the Spice Girls will be stampeding down this corridor in a frenzy of chaos and energy, which of course has become their hallmark.
What, chickens? How many?
Why aren't we going round the back?
I thought you said they were coming down this way.
I never said that. You want me to cut?
I think that would be wise.
I really like that film. It's sort of real old-fashioned sort of caper film. And very, you know, parodies itself almost. And also, I was taught all the dance moves to the Spice Girls songs by the Spice Girls themselves. Eyes Wide Shut. It's so funny because that film, actually, I made it right after... No, I made it right before Spice World, even though it came out later. It's not funny. Because I went from... I think I'm the only... Well, I am the only actor who's ever made back-to-back films with Stanley Kubrick and the Spice Girls. But I loved that film. It took forever. It was actually a nightmare in terms of the lead-up to it because, you know... they kept me waiting months, and they sort of said, oh, it's going to be on Tuesday. No, it's not. It's going to be in 3 weeks on Wednesday. Oh, it's going to be in a month's time. And it was just this one scene. I had to audition like 6 times in various countries.
It's funny you should ask that question, Bill, because actually there was something a little strange about the way Mr. Nightingale left, yes.
Really? What was that?
Well... He came in this morning about 4:30 a.m. with 2 men. Big guys.
And eventually when I did it, I did it, you know, I was holding out to do it because I thought this is Stanley Kubrick's probably last film and what an honour. But I actually had a great time on it. I really liked it. I loved Stanley. He was hilarious. He wasn't scary like I thought he was going to be. I did stand up to him. That was, I think, why we got on. I met him and early in the morning with Tom Cruise, and you know, he'd come onto the set to rehearse, and it was like 6:30 in the morning, and I went, hello, I'm Alan, and he went, you're not American. I was like, I know, I'm Scottish, and he went, you're American on the tape, and I was like, yeah, that's because I'm an actor, Stanley, and he just sort of looked at me, and I could see that he was sort of respected that I just kind of slapped him a bit, you know. And after that, we got on really well and had a real laugh, actually. And it was also good because every time we did, you know, you do thousands of takes, and that one little scene took a week to shoot. But every single time we went to do a take, I understood why we were doing it again. And it was tiny little details, and it made me really appreciate acting again, and about how, you know, there's no small parts, just small actors, that sort of thing. And it made me, kind of reinvigorated my interest in acting, actually, because I worked in such a detailed way on such a small thing. The Spy Kids trilogy. It's an amazing thing being Mr. Floop, because I remember exactly the moment when young people, young adults, changed their attitude towards me in the way that they approached me. And it was because they were kids who had, seen Spy Kids, and now they were adults and they're meeting me. And it was, before that, it was, people are like, oh, hey, a little bit cool, a little bit, yeah, I like your work, my girlfriend likes you, sort of thing. And it changed overnight to, you're a part of my childhood. And this really magical connection that I have with a whole swathe of young people. And it continues, actually, because that film, kids still watch that film. It hasn't sort of aged out in a way. And it is a really lovely thing that I can tell by the way people approach me if they're coming to talk to me about Spy Kids. Because it is like having, like a fairy tale character be in the bar with you. You know what I mean? Someone that has been a part of your childhood. And I think that's really magical.
And some mean, nasty people want to have you for their supper. But if you follow me, you can all be free. Free. You can all be free. As a bird on a big TV. If you dream, if you dream, if you dream. My dream. Full of selfish, mean, nasty people. Nasty, 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 nasty. But there's a way you can make your day. You can laugh, you can smile, you can come and stay a while. You can dream my dream, you can have it all with me. You can dream my dream, you can dream my dream, you can dream.
And like, when when they said, oh, Robert Rodriguez is doing this new film, and I was like, oh, how exciting, some sort of dashing film noir. And then it was Spy Kids, and I was like, oh, well, it's not what I expected at all, but I really liked it. And it was lovely going back as well to do the sequels. And of course, none of us had any idea that it was going to be this huge thing. I mean, not at all. It was kind of amazing.
Who, what, when, where, and why I delighted. What do I intend to find this time? Run around, jump down, bounce and bound and find another way to duck and hide. This Isle of Dreams.
And I really like the film as well. Like, some films I've been in I really like. Some I don't. A lot I don't. Spy Kids I like. X2.
My God.
The makeup took about 5 hours, 4.5, depending, The thing was that all the tattoos, they were added at the very last minute, so they didn't have a chance to make little molds of them or whatever, so just bung them on, stick them on. They had to be done by hand every single day. So there was these two men with those kind of things like, they squirt, like you're icing a cake. They were doing that on my face for hours. I mean, it was just awful. But I really liked the film. But, I think that's the thing. Often, for me, what is important is the experience you have. That's more important than the end product, because it's so many things can go wrong. And actually, I would much rather have a great time and have a terrible film. But at least it was a good film. The Good Wife. It was a very new experience for me doing The Good Wife, because I'd never done a long-running television series before. I'd never really played a grown-up before. I was suddenly playing a man in a suit, and I was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm Mr. Floop. Or and most of the people I played weren't even human, a lot of them. So I feel that I grew up doing that show. I grew up as an actor, and I could, realize that you can really build on a character, and actually it was a great thing to sort of lob things back to the writers, and then they would run with it and give them more things to do, because you just, in those long-running shows, you're making it up as you go along. You just suddenly can have an ex-wife, or you can suddenly have a child. And I loved that about it. It used to terrify me that there was no end, you know, because if you're used to always doing films and plays, you know when you read the script what the ending is and where you're going with the character. On a long-running TV show, there is no end. So you have to kind of give it up a bit.
I just wanted to say thank you. That's all.
You didn't need to.
My boyfriend's back from Las Vegas. I'm just saying that. It's not a big deal. I'm just saying it.
I'm glad.
No, you don't have
it's
to.
It's not what you think.
Really, this is just a thank you.
Natalie, I know. It's just nice to talk, that's all.
And I realised, you know, I am a middle-aged man in a suit, and I can play one. And actually, doesn't mean if someone's ostensibly boring, like, you know, man in a suit, that was a kind of my prejudice. That actually, I think Eli, that character, is one of the most crazy people I've ever played. Instinct. Doing Instinct is really fun. Like, it's sort of, it seems to me like a sort of an old-fashioned show. It's like an old-fashioned cop show. It's not gritty reality. Like in the first episode of our new season, the first murder is a lady who's frozen alive in her own cryogenic chamber. So it's quite sort of campy in a way. There's a tone to it that's a little sort of heightened, and I really like that. And my character's not. He's sort of a fuddy-duddy professor, former spy, kind of, you know, all these things that only happen on TV. And it's the first time they've ever had a gay leading character in a network drama on American TV. So it's a whole new thing. And because of that, I think it's actually quite fun, because there's no precedent, you know? And it's the first time I've been the lead in a big TV show. And I just want to have fun. You know, I realise that what's really important to me is that everybody on the set just has a good time, and, you know, we make it as good as we can, but it's also, you know, it's not brain surgery. Let's just have a laugh and be nice. Suffering Man's Charity, a.k.a. Ghostwriter. When you're directing and you're in it, you obviously have to look at yourself, and you don't do the usual thing of, you're very kind of like, okay, that was fine, I can cut that in, that'll work. So you actually, I like it because it makes me less self-conscious about my acting. But that film was nuts, you know, it's this sort of, kind of like a horror film really, and just crazy. There's a sequence with Karen Black, who is, you know, sadly no longer with us, but there's a sequence where she comes to the house that I'm living in with David Boreanaz, and he brings her back, thinking that she's going to take him away from it all, and it's just so dirty. And you know, she's much older than David, and she's drunk, and there's thunder and lightning and everything. And she goes, at one point, she goes, I want you to fuck me. I want you to fuck me. But first I want tater tots. Which I just thought was the greatest line ever. Because I know what she means. Josie and the Pussycats. I like that film. Another sort of example of a film that when it came out, that they didn't know what to do with it. It was a weird film. It's like a parody of itself, you know. And so they aimed it at sort of tweens, and it didn't really, it didn't work. It didn't really go anywhere. And it's one of these films that over the years people have come back to it, and it's got a sort of a culty following. And I really like it. I mean, for me, what was so great was that I basically kill a boy band within the first few minutes of it, which, you know, that's pretty good. And I got to work with Parker Posey, and we made 2 films back to back. That was the second one. And that was really good. And I remember and actually Rosario Dawson, who's in it, I'm about to go and work with her for the first time since. So like 20 years later, we're working together again. Yeah, it was just really fun, a really fun, kind of mad, and sort of ahead of its time, I think, in the way that it parodied a lot of product placement and marketing and things.
Yeah, that's what I want. Give me money. What I want. Lots of money. What I want. Just give.
I remember when Parker left. This is like 20 years ago, so I was only, you know, in my early 30s. And when Parker left, she wrapped early, I was the oldest person in the cast. And you just don't expect that to be the case when you're in your early 30s. You know what I mean? Expect to be like maybe now. But, because everyone was so young. The 3 girls were like, you know, 10. But, oh, darlings. Broad City.
You're our guest, you're our guest. Jiggly Caliente is the best. Tuck your dick between your legs and shake those unfeasibly large breasts. A generous pour, contours and curves, all the drinks that you deserve. We are dressed in all couture, just ask our queen, Sasha Velour.
I, you know, loved the show, and I used to see Ilana at my yoga class. I remember one time, like, I was behind her in this class, and she got up to go, and she did a kind of, and later she tweeted at me about, oh, we were so zen. And I went, yeah, I had the better view though. And so then they just asked me, and I did it one afternoon, and it was hilarious. And I don't know, they're such lovely girls. I mean, so talented and clever, but just really nice. Both their mums were there, and you know, everything about it is done with such kindness. I really liked that. Well, that's all we've got time for. I hope you enjoyed me blabbing on about some of my films that I've been in. If I missed the one that you liked, then worry not. I'll be back in 20 years' time to talk about some more.